Coming up this week on Sporting Journal Radio.
Covey took off and I watched him land up high and I broke my cardinal rule.
Will you mix flushers and pointers when you hunt out there?
Inside 30 yards, it's going to be just as effective as a 12 gauge on everything.
Broadcasting on the Sporting Journal Radio Network, wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube.
Fish on right now.
Well, we're here at the 2024 Pheasant Fest and Quail Classic, presented by OnX. Know where you stand with OnX. And our guest now is Jeremy Smith. I fish, I hunt, and always will.
It's just to look out for your everyday hunter, angler, and trapper that's out there.
A Fish Hunt Forever production. This is Sporting Journal Radio. That's right. Welcome to the show. I'm Brett Amundsen. That's Dan Amundsen over there. What's up, Dan?
Hey.
It's almost Christmas.
Right. It is. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, yeah. End of the year. I can't believe it. It's a sad time for a lot of us because the hunting seasons are slowly coming to an end here, unless you do some traveling, which is probably what we should be doing. Although, I have a feeling you're going to be getting into ice fishing over there, Dan.
Well, it's time. And, you know, the pheasant hunting is, without having a bird dog, it's hard to get into the pheasant hunting thing.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, we're going to talk about pheasant hunting and upland hunting and traveling for upland hunting as well. Tyler Webster is going to be with us here in just a second to talk about upland hunting all over the country, as well as getting into some different guns. Maybe you're looking to get into some of those subgauges like we were this year. We're going to talk to him about his evolution into that process and what he recommends for those guns and find out what he's doing right now, because it'd be a pretty wild trip. Plus, Joe Henry will join us to give us a Lake of the Woods fishing report as well. Dan, who are the sponsors this week on the show?
Invergrove Toyota. Maybe you need a last-minute Christmas present. Just go get a pickup truck at Invergrove Toyota.
Sure.
They're the official truck sponsor of Fish Hunt Forever. Lake of the Woods Tourism. There's ice up there. Go fish Lake of the Woods. It's the Wallet Capital. Plan a trip for this winter at lakeofthewoodsmn.com. OnX Hunt. See private land boundaries, recent imagery, offline maps, and Minnesota-specific hunt layers. Download the OnX Hunt app today. Tasman Lake Lodge. Catch world record lake trout and giant pike at Saskatchewan's Tasman Lake. Learn more at tasmanlake.com. Devils Lake, North Dakota. Catch it all in Devils Lake. Prairie Sportsman. The new season is being filmed right now. You can watch episodes anytime at the Prairie Sportsman YouTube channel. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort. Go fish out of a snow bear at Devil's Lake. Learn more at haybaleheights.com. And plan a trip for Guardian Eagle Resort in Ontario. Go fish those pristine Ontario waters. You can fly directly from the Twin Cities. Learn more at guardianeagle.com.
That's right. And he is the host of Western Wingshooter podcast, co-host Prairie Tales podcast. He's done OnX Master Classes. He's Tyler Webster, and he joins us right now on the show. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty darn good. Just kind of out here on the road. Been chasing chukars here in Nevada for the last couple days and getting ready to pack up and head out tomorrow to Idaho.
Are chukars have to be one of the hardest upland birds to hunt, aren't they?
Yeah, they're not easy, but years like this actually make it a little bit easier. The Nevada Game and Fish Department came out with their survey report this year, and it's at an all-time high.
Oh, really?
I was here last year, and it was pretty good last year. And this year they had 120% increase over last year. So I was like, well, I'm coming back. And boy, I mean, between all of us. Gosh, the first 3 days we were here, there was 5 of us together, and then we were hunting with a couple of guys that we know that I met through the podcast, Ryan and Jace Newmarker, and then a couple of their friends. Jeez. That was our very first walk. That was 2 hours. We probably seen 600-700 chukars.
Really?
I shot four chukars, 4 huns. Ryan got a double limit, 6 chukars and 4 huns, and his son Jace got 5 chukars and a hun. So I mean, it's been unbelievable.
Okay, now this video that Dan's playing around, this is what I pictured chukar hunting to be: is higher elevations, getting up into the mountains, some unforgiving territory. I mean, the first couple things you showed there didn't look quite so bad,
right?
But go ahead.
The first day, it's one of those things that it can kind of be as easy or as difficult as you want it to be. The first day I went out with Ryan and Jace, and it was maybe 500-foot climb from where we parked. Like, where we parked the machines is actually where that covey of huns got up. He let his dog out, and we're getting our vests and our guns and everything else ready. And Jace looks over and he says, "Hey, our dog's on point 30 feet away." And so me and Jace grabbed our shotguns, didn't grab any extra shells, walked over, and a covey of huns took off, and I got one out of that covey. But from there, it was about a 500-foot climb, but it wasn't, it was like this. It's not super, super steep. And then we got up to the top of the ridge and just kind of started working. I think it was probably 1,700 feet of vertical climbing up through the whole day, which isn't all that bad.
Yeah.
The next day, when those other two videos that you were messing around with there, I got out of the truck. I could hear chukars talking up in the rocks, and Covey took off, and I watched him land up high, and I broke my cardinal rule: never chase these things uphill, ever. But I did, all the way to the top and over. And then I looked down after I got to the top, and I started trying to figure out my life choices there a little bit, because it was really steep, it was really slippery, but I was able to. I think I ended up getting. I got a limit, but I only was able to recover 2 of the birds. There was just so many birds in there, and when those birds hit the ground, just like a pheasant, they just disappear. But it was pretty awesome here so far.
What is the limit there for chukar?
It's 6 chukars per person per day and 4 huns. So you can, and then there's also a ton of valley quail here as well. Here at the VRBO we're staying in, there's a covey of about 100 of them that go through the yard every morning and just taunt the dogs. And you can shoot 10 valley quail a day per person as well. But if you get out there and the wild thing, so I come from North Dakota. We've had good hun numbers for quite a few years now. I've been hunting huns since I was 8 years old. The huns here are basically a different species.
Really?
You can find them from the sagebrush flats all the way to the top of the mountain, higher than where the chukars are, and everywhere in between. So when you're out there chasing chukars, you're actually moving. When the dog goes on point, you have no idea if it's going to be chukars or huns getting up. And I mean, gosh, that first day, I bet we moved 12 coveys of huns and 15 coveys of chukars. I mean, it was just phenomenal hunting.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I've hunted huns in North Dakota too, and it's nice to hear that the numbers have been back up for the last few years. Here in western Minnesota, we still don't have them. And I hunt quite a bit. I think I've seen huns maybe twice in the last 10 years walking around here in western Minnesota. And supposedly there used to be coveys right around where I live, and I haven't seen one in a long time. So it's nice. It makes you wonder just what the difference between North Dakota and Minnesota is. It can't be that big of a difference to see the numbers recover as well as they have up there, but it's nice to see it in any case. And full disclosure, I don't travel a lot for upland hunting. Every year I talk about doing it, and every year I don't. But I've never thought of Nevada as being a place to shoot huns, first of all.
I know,
but not just huns, but chukars and quail as well.
Yeah, I was honestly pretty surprised myself when I came out here last year. Finally, I've been talking to people for years now. I started my podcast like 7.5 years ago or so, and so I've talked to people out here, and they're like, "Yeah, there's good numbers of huns out there," and I just couldn't picture it in my mind because in North Dakota they're so tied to the ag, and like North Dakota and South Dakota, I think that they misnamed them. It should be West Dakota and East Dakota because you follow that Missouri River south down through South Dakota, and like any place in western North Dakota, you're going to run into pretty good numbers of huns. Eastern North Dakota, it's just a little bit different, a little bit more flat, a little bit more harsh too, even though the huns are pretty hardy birds. But getting back to Nevada, we came out here last year and we made a nice big walk for chukars, and we were able to get a couple of chukars and seen a bunch. And then the guys we were hunting with, they're like, let's just go right down into the sage flats, and I mean flat, like pancake flat. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty good after burning legs and burning calories up there in the mountains chasing those chukars. And God, we only hunted for like an hour and we moved like 8 coveys. And I was like, my goodness, this is the best kept secret in upland hunting is the number of huns that are here. And the fact that, their season here stays open until the early part of February, I think. So, those of us that do come from up north, it's a nice way to extend your season. And when there's good years, you kind of got to take advantage of it.
So for some people out there listening that say, well, you're from North Dakota and you're talking about it being flat. Well, you get west of the river, both in North Dakota and South Dakota, and the terrain starts to change a little bit. And I think people don't realize that sometimes. I miss hunting North Dakota, and I might have to try this Nevada deal. Is it for an out-of-towner or a non-resident? Is it a fairly easy hunt to set up and accomplish?
Well, I mean, with the invention of Onyx, several years ago, I've been using Onyx, I think, since like 2015 or 16. Like Nevada's one of the states that has the most public land that there is. So everything we're hunting pretty much is all BLM and public. I mean, there's no, you don't have to go knock on doors. You don't have to ask permission. You just have to, do a little bit of research and figure out what you're kind of looking for, especially when you're targeting chukars. The Huns are, like I said, they're everywhere and nowhere all at once here. You can find them walking any place, and then when you do go out and try to target them, sometimes you don't find them. But with the just huge, vast amounts of public land here, it does make it really easy for somebody to plan a trip. You just kind of have to do a little bit of homework and try to figure out, us coming from where we come from, it's easier for us to figure out where a pheasant might be than where a chukar is likely to be. And so if you can kind of do some digging into what you're actually kind of looking for as far as chukar habitat, because to the untrained eye, it does really all look the same until you go with somebody that starts making some of those connections for you, where you start seeing the pattern. The pattern actually emerges pretty quick. And so here, the last couple days, we were lucky enough to get here the day that they got their first snow of the year. Just like in North Dakota, when you get a first snow for pheasant season, it's one of those days that you just do not want to miss. And so they got like 4 or 5 inches of fresh snow. We pulled in that night. First day out was the day that we had that one really good walk. And is what the snow does, just like in pheasants, it just kind of condenses them down. They're going to go to the south-facing sides. That's going to start to get burned off first, where the snow is going to melt before the other side and all that kind of stuff. But you're looking for cheatgrass and you're looking for rocky outcroppings, basically. And if you can find that, you're going to find chukars, especially this year.
Are you finding snakes when you do that too?
No. Snakes are long gone this time of the year, which is why I'm here now and not in October. So I like this whole road trip's been pretty, like we've been doing this now for years. We just came to Nevada from Arizona, and everybody, like I've been hunting Arizona now for almost a decade, going down there chasing 3 different quail species that they have in Arizona. And that's one of the things that people ask me the most often about Arizona is, do you run into rattlesnakes down there? And in my 10 years, I've seen one. Usually in this high desert area, it gets cold enough at night where those snakes just den up, they're gone. I've talked to ranchers down in Arizona that say, that have been there for literally 70, 80 years. And they're like, we can count on 2 hands the number of snakes we've seen after Thanksgiving, which works out perfect because that's the time I'm looking to get out of North Dakota and go do something different. So, snakes are not an issue.
Tyler Webster is our guest. This segment brought to you by Guardian Eagle Resort. Fish the Ontario waters of Guardian Eagle Resort. Bring the family and fish for walleyes and pike on 75,000 acres of private water. And you can fly direct from Minneapolis and land right at the runway at the resort. If you want to talk to them, they'll be at the Northwest Sports Show this year in March in Minneapolis. Or learn more at guardianeagle.com or see our video on the Fish Hunt Forever YouTube channel. More with Tyler Webster talking subgauges when we come back on Sporting Journal Radio. Sick of eating tag soup? It's time to own your odds this fall with OnX Hunt, the GPS hunting app trusted by millions of hunters. Now you'll have access to nationwide public and private land ownership information, waypoints, optimal win for each stand, tracks, and much more. All at your fingertips. Go to onxmaps.com/hunt and use code SJR20 at checkout to receive 20% off your membership. That's code SJR20. We're back, Sporting Journal Radio. Thanks for tuning in on the network by demand or watching this on YouTube or Spotify. Tyler Webster is our guest right now, and this segment's brought to us by Tazen Lake Lodge. Tyler, I got this 28 gauge this year, and Dan got a new 410 over under. And, I've been using 12 gauges my whole life. And finally decide, I keep seeing all these guys with mostly 20s, but you hear about the Sweet 16 or 28s or even 410s being used in the upland world. And I know I had some buddies in North Dakota that every year, late season, they'd get a good November mallard shoot, lay out blinds, ducks finishing close, and all they could use was 410s. It'd be 3 guys with 410s out there. And I'm like, man, that'd be so much fun. So we're finally doing it, Harry. We got the 410, and then my dad found this this 28 gauge, and it's really kind of a neat gun. It's New England Firearms, and we
just got demonetized.
Oh yeah, sorry. Well, it's just
a prop. It's fake.
Pretend you're looking
YouTube.
at it. Yep, these are all fake.
Show it. Just show it. Show it. Show it. Who cares? Show it on the camera. We all want to see it.
I think it's
YouTube doesn't care.
I think it's a youth model even. So my dad used to get into like coin buys and buying and selling coins and collectibles and all this stuff when he retired, and he lived in Northwest Wisconsin, and there'd be all these old widows mostly, and they'd have their husband's collections, and they didn't know what to do with it, so he'd come over and appraise it and buy some of the stuff. And he bought all these coins, and as he was leaving, he noticed this shotgun leaning up behind the door, and the woman there was like, "Oh yeah, my husband just had it behind the door for protection." And he's like, "Well, how much for that?" She's like, just throw it in. I don't know what it's worth." And these guns aren't really worth
they're pretty cheap to start with. Yeah.
So, and he asked me if I wanted it. I said, heck yeah, this is awesome. This is a cool gun. And I've had it for about 2 years, and I always wanted to take it pheasant hunting, and I finally did this year. And it's hard. I'll be honest. The best part about it is that, so this was a couple of days ago. This bird, I almost stepped on it. It's gusting over 40, and
just a little behind her, it looked like.
Yeah.
The question with that gun is, what's it choked at? Because
it's a modified.
Is it a modified?
So
okay.
I definitely thought it was a full choke after watching this, because I with a modified, you sure think. I mean, I think I took off like one little feather or something I saw drop on it, but it was fun anyway.
Yeah, the Subgauges are, I think now with the invention of good ammo for them, and like it was really kind of an eye-opening thing for me as well. I was always a 12 or 20 gauge guy for years, and I had a buddy who he sent me with a gun down to Arizona. He was going to come down and meet me for Mearns quail hunting, and he'd bought this 28 gauge over-under. And he ended up having a seizure in the car on the way down. It turned out he had a brain tumor. Fast forward, he ended up passing away a few years later, and he left me this 28 gauge in his will. But he called me from the hospital, and he said, "I bought this 28 gauge to shoot quail with, and I want you to shoot it while you're down there." And I was like, God, I can barely hit these things with a 12 gauge, let alone a 28. And I went out, and the first couple coveys that got up, I just crushing birds. And I was like, God, maybe there is something to this, And then I've always kind of delved into the lore of the 28 specifically, where it's the best patterning gun inside of 30 yards that's made. Inside 30 yards, it's going to be just as effective as a 12 gauge on everything, literally on everything, with good shells, with good premium shells. And as what it is, it's what they call a square load. So the load is just as tall as it is wide. So it's like throwing a pie plate through the air. So there's no gaps in the pattern at all. They just pattern beautifully. If you shoot a 12 gauge at 30 yards, there's going to be a lot more pellets on there, but they're going to be stacked. So there's going to be a whole bunch of pellets in one small area, and then there's going to be some holes around. So when you start looking at the ballistics of a shotgun shell, 1,350 feet per second is 1,350 feet per second. There's just a few less pellets there. But when the gun patterns better and you have the good shells today, you get some good chokes in there and you're choked correctly, it'll do anything that you need it to do.
Yeah. So, more pellets going to hit inside that circle. So if somebody was going to say, yeah, I'm going to go buy a new gun for upland hunting, and maybe you're going to ask them what kind of upland hunting they're going to be doing. But for the most part, are you going to tell them 28 gauge? Or are you going to recommend something different?
I'm going to tell them 28. So like the 20 gauge is like the entry level into the sub gauges in my mind. And I have one that I brought with on this trip that I do like quite a lot. But when you look at the ballistics between a 20 and a 28, you're not gaining anything. And in fact, you're actually losing a pretty good chunk of pattern, especially in 20 gauge 3-inch shells. 20 gauge 3-inch shells pattern notoriously poor. So if you're going to stick with the 2 3/4 inch 20 gauge shell, you're never going to hear anything from me. They're fine. I love shooting 20 gauge too. But the nice thing about shooting 28, they're going to be lighter. The shells are smaller, so there's less recoil, especially if you're talking about somebody of smaller stature, whether it be a lady or a kid, or I'm 6'5" and 310 pounds, and I love shooting 28 gauge just because it's a hoot. But there's so many upsides to it, and there's really no downsides as long as you're taking good, like ethical, shots inside of that 35-yard range, even, which is kind of that's our bread and butter as an upland hunter is. From 20 to 35 yards. That's kind of our high percentage target range. And sure, there's going to be some shots that are taken past that. But if you're hunting, especially over pointing dogs, like my dogs are all pointers. You get a dog on point, bird gets up close, or really nice working flushing dog's the same thing. Those birds are going to be in the air at 10, 15 yards. That 28 gauge is going to make them just as dead as anything else.
You're going to make me want to get into the discussion of pointers versus flushers now. We're going to need a longer show for that.
Whoa! If you're a pheasant hunter, lab's the right tool, man.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
I can't. I just love labs. Every year I pheasant hunt, particularly later in the season when Dan and I walked a pretty nice chunk yesterday, and we put up a fair amount of birds, but man, they're flushing wild, and that honestly had nothing to do with the lab work. It's just they're late season birds,
just the way they are. Yeah.
But man, it just every time it makes me want to get a pointer. But I just
my buddy Wes, who's sitting over here in the chair, he's got a 9-month-old lab, and he shot Chukar over it here just the last week.
That's awesome. So, I want to stick on the sub gauges real quick, but just will you mix flushers and pointers when you hunt out there?
Sure. So the way that we typically hunt, if I'm going to go this way, they're going to go this way. And now when it comes to pheasant hunting in North Dakota, we absolutely will work the labs right in with the pointing dogs. You don't necessarily want to put a lab with a very young pointing dog because it can unspool them and it can teach them some bad habits. But my dogs are all of the age now where they've hunted with flushing dogs forever, and it doesn't bother them in the least.
They get it. All right. Well, we got about a minute and a half left in this segment. So if someone, getting back to the guns a little bit then, 28 gauge is what you're going to recommend. Is there a brand? Is there a style? Break it down for me. Hey Tyler, I want to get a new 28 gauge. What are you going to tell me?
Sure. There's a lot of nice options out there right now. Whether I prefer side by sides. I did get a semi-automatic Benelli 28 gauge this year specifically for this trip, because if I'm going to put out the calories to climb up top of a mountain, I want that third shot so I can hopefully get at least one of those birds, if not more. But so it can run the gamut. I mean, there's from I shoot CZ Bob Whites, the side by side. It's a 2-trigger gun. You can get into them for sub $1,000. There's a couple of semi-automatic brands out there that are making $600-700 28 gauges. I think I want to say TriStar is one of them, but I can't remember exactly the brands. And they can run all the way up to that Benelli I'm shooting right now. That's a couple $1,000. It really just kind of whatever you're comfortable with. If you're an over/under guy, there's a ton of different options out there. CZ would be a nice place to start.
Well, I'm going to have to look into one of those, because after missing that bird that we showed the video of, I kept pulling the trigger where's my second shot? Come on. And that's the problem with a single shot, but it's fun. I'll tell you what, it is nice carrying that gun. It's so much lighter than my 12 gauge. And when you put in a 7-8 mile day out there, and and I'm in the prairie, so it's nice and flat. But if I was walking in the mountains, I'd want something lighter for sure.
Yeah, that little Benelli I think weighs 4.8 pounds.
Oh, there you go.
Super light.
More with Tyler Webster coming up in just a second. This segment brought to you by Tasman Lake Lodge, trophy lake trout northern pike in a scenic northern Saskatchewan setting. I love it up there, and we've got 2 episodes of Tasman TV available now on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel. In fact, Dan catches a new personal best pike.
You bet.
In that episode. So see it now on the Tasman Lake Lodge YouTube channel, or go to tasmanlake.com for more information. More Tyler when we come back. It doesn't get much better than fresh perch and fresh walleye. If you're looking for an exciting winter fishing destination, come to Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Haybale Heights Campground and Resort is on the ice with a fleet of snow bears, keeping you mobile and warm so you can stay on the roaming schools of fish. Haybale Heights on the east end of Devil's Lake has knowledgeable guides, comfortable cabins, and their own lake access, making your trip as successful and stress-free as possible. To book your trip, go to haybaleheights.com. That's haybaleheights.com. We're back. Sporting Journal Radio. Tyler Webster is our guest right now. And this segment is brought to you by Invergrove Toyota. And they've got some discounts we'll tell you about coming up in just a little bit. Now, Tyler, we got to show, I don't know if Dan has this picture ready, but we got to show you this gun that a friend of mine, Jason Markula, hunted with when we filmed this Subgauge hunt. I made him hunt with it.
Sure.
And it's a single shot 410 backpack gun. Let's see if I can remember.
Pretty cool.
I hadn't seen it. Have you seen one of those before?
Yeah, I've seen some of those. They're almost like a takedown for backcountry hunting for the guys up in Alaska and stuff like that, where they're actually going out hunting camp meat for, whether it's ptarmigan or spruce grouse or whatever it is. It's just one of those little backpack guns that you can break down and put in, and they don't weigh anything. So, and again, 410 shells, pretty light. You can carry a lot of 410 ammo and be able to go out there and secure some camp meat. So yeah, I have seen them.
And I'm trying to remember what brand that was.
Companion, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, Companion. And I think in a little bit of research I've done, I think Beretta made the first version of that, and then Companion basically copied it, came out, and I think you can get it in different, different gauges and different models. But pretty neat gun. I don't think he hit anything with it.
Yeah, I don't know if he was real happy that you were making him carry it. He just wanted to carry his 12 gauge and shoot birds. And we decided to film a TV show with it.
Yeah, sorry, Jason.
Whoops.
But that's all right. We shot some birds, and it was really cool is we hunted 2 days with him, and we brought I think Will is 16, his kid, and his kid's buddy out, and they shot some pheasants. They weren't their, was it that kid's first pheasant? I can't remember.
Idea.
He was I think he was on the Clay Target team, but I'm not sure he'd hunted. He shot some pheasants, and then the next day we brought another 16-year-old. Jason brought these guys out. I'll give Jason all the credit for it, but we had another kid out who shot some of his first pheasants. So it was a real fun weekend, and that episode of Prairie Sportsman will be coming out in the new season, which starts in early 2025. Tyler, we were talking a little bit about upland hunting, and of course, you've got you've been doing podcasts about upland hunting for a long time. Right now, Western Wingshooter and also Prairie Tales. These are, I know you did the Birds, Booze, and Buds. Is Western Wingshooter?
It's a rebrand.
Okay.
So I started it as the Western Wingshooter podcast 7 years ago, and then I pivoted because I was in my early 30s, and I was like, I don't really want to be all that serious. This is supposed to be kind of fun and whatever. Well, fast forward 7 years and 350 episodes later, and like I've changed, the podcast has also changed. So this year I just rebranded it back to the original name.
Gotcha.
Just like it's we still have some fun, silly podcasts, but we also have a lot of it's a lot of trip talk and where we're what we're doing, where we're doing, and who we're hunting with, kind of stuff. So it's evolved over time, just like we all do.
Sure, absolutely. And people can find that in the usual podcast places?
Yep, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all that stuff.
Tell me about Prairie Tales.
Me and my two buddies, Wes Larrabee and George McNamara, started that just this fall. We wanted something like, it's kind of the curse of actually getting some traction with my podcast over the years, is that I'm kind of pigeonholed into that bird hunting world, which is great because that's what I'm the most passionate about. But where we come from, North Dakota, Minnesota, all the same, we don't all just do one thing. We do all the things. So we started a podcast together called Prairie Tales, where we can, it's going to be certainly a good chunk about bird hunting, but also upland bird hunting, then also a lot of waterfowl and deer hunting and trapping and fishing and spring turkey hunting and whatever we're really doing. Because that's the beautiful part about living where we live, is there's not really any down season. Whether it's you go from spring fishing and turkey hunting into upland bird hunting, into deer season, into waterfowl season, into ice fishing. Like there's never any time where there's not something to do outside. So having another show that we can actually do all that stuff on, while I also still have my Western Wingshooter podcast where we talk mostly about upland bird hunting, is kind of it's almost like a nice break for me, where I can do multiple things and not have people yawning in their car and falling asleep. So
it's so hard because, that's kind of where we live, being so Minnesota heavy with the radio network. It's a lot of Minnesota outdoor activities. But when you pivot from, say upland hunting this week to maybe we're going to talk about ice fishing next week, there's some guys out there that hunt pheasants that don't ice fish. So trying to keep that, this is get a little bit of podcast nerd talk here, but trying to keep relevant in today's onslaught of especially digital media. There's been time, like I started a waterfowl podcast just to try to be that niche, to have a targeted audience so they know every week this is what it's going to be like, but it's tough.
See, and I think when I first started, it was still kind of a new thing. I mean, like they'd been around for a bit, but people were still trying to figure out exactly what this thing is, right? And so like the advice that I got at that time was do something very specific, because then you're going to find an audience that's going to start, they're going to tune in to listen to you talk about this one thing, which is probably really good advice back then. Now, I don't know if it is so much, because you get to a point where you're just maxed out on listeners. There's just not that many more people that are interested in upland hunting that are going to actually take the time to listen to an episode. So when you can kind of do something that's a little bit more general and something that's certainly outdoor based, but can run the gamut from talking about trapping in New England to talking about fishing for walleyes offshore in North Dakota on Devil's Lake, there's also definitely an audience for that.
Well, we should, yeah, absolutely. And it's so tough these days, and it's always changing, and algorithms are always changing. And if you look at like a Joe Rogan, I mean, he's always talking about different things. It's crazy. But I want to talk about fishing, because you are in North Dakota, and you are, for guys that only know you from the upland world, they might be surprised to learn how much fishing you actually do up there.
Well, there's basically 3 seasons in my life. There's upland bird season, there's fishing season, and there's pool season in the middle where I'm playing pool and tournaments. That's all that I do. That's from January 1st to January 1st. You're going to find me doing one of those 3 things. And so I live 25 minutes from Lake Sakakawea, which is one of the best walleye fisheries on the planet. I'm only a couple hours from Devil's Lake. So growing up there, walleye fishing's always been a huge part of what I do. I also like to go fish for salmon and steelhead over in Michigan. I like fishing for big bluegills. Like anything that I can do to go fishing during that time from ice out. I'm not a huge ice fisherman. It's a little, I get a little rambunctious, I guess. I'll sit there for a while, and if they're not biting, I'm just going to go call coyotes or something else. But when I got a boat about 5-6 years ago, I finally bit the bullet and got my first boat, and then quickly upgraded to a bigger boat, because I realized there were a lot of days that I wasn't going to be able to go in my little 17-foot aluminum boat. I probably fish 80-90 days a year on Sakakawea, out there chasing walleyes, and it's just a ton of fun.
Why don't you go someplace where you can actually catch walleyes, though? Like there's Minnesota's got a few pretty good lakes, but I'll put Sakakawea up against any of them. Oh, 100%. And I say that jokingly, because I know particularly in the last few years, I feel like it's been a real hot bite over there.
It has been, and it's kind of fun. Now that I have the boat and the technology and the time to actually get out there and do it a lot more, it starts right at ice out, where the fishing just goes berserk, and then there's that little lull there during the spawn, and then Sakakawea kind of like it runs kind of. It's weird. So in the far west part, where that warm water starts coming in from the Yellowstone and the Missouri, that bite starts up there sooner, and then the spawn happens sooner, and the lake just kind of catches fire all the way down by June. And so I'll just kind of work my way following the bite all the way down the lake before the end of the year. And man, it's a ton of fun. And when you can get out there and, like we had a day this year where we went out and hunted turkeys in the morning, and then we went out and caught a limit of walleyes at lunch. And I mean, it's just hard to beat.
Yeah, it's fun. North Dakota is interesting, because I feel like it's Devil's Lake, it's Missouri River, and there's a couple other lakes around there. Otherwise, it's almost slough fishing a little bit in some sense. You're going to need a bigger boat, because if you're going to be on Devils or, Sakakawea, you're going to be fishing some big water most of the time out there.
Yeah, and it'll build pretty quick on you. So this year, I just sent you guys a picture. October is one of those months that almost kills me every year, and I love every minute of it. We're up in the morning chasing waterfowl, then we're upland hunting all day, and then there's a couple lakes that have really good shore bites with jigs and plastic. So that fish I just sent you, we shot cranes and ducks and geese in the morning, shot pheasants, huns, and sharptails in the afternoon, and then at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we bailed and went fishing. We caught a limit of walleyes. So we caught 15 walleyes in like 3 hours. Jeez. And rolled back into the house at like 10:30, just out of it, completely exhausted and about ready to fall asleep, and but I mean, it's so much fun. There's just so much stuff to do, and by that time of the year, there's just not that many hours of daylight to get it done.
I miss North Dakota. Western Minnesota is a lot like the Dakotas for the most part, but I miss North Dakota, and I someday maybe I'll be a Dakota resident.
It's
again.
right there.
Maybe South Dakota, we'll see. Gosh. All right, Tyler, before we let you go, any other plans for upland trips this year at all?
Well, I'm kind of in the middle of this one right now. So we took off the day after Thanksgiving. We hunted Iowa for a few days for pheasants, Kansas for bobwhites and pheasants and prairie chickens, down to Arizona, hunted the 3 species of quail in Arizona, back up to Nevada for huns and chukars, and hopefully a valley quail. And now tomorrow we're heading up to Idaho. We're going to be up there for about 8-9 days, chasing chukars, huns, maybe even some ducks. We're hoping to get a duck hunt in up there as well. And then probably back down to Arizona, and I'll spend the rest of January down there, hopefully, as long as my employees can kind of hold down the fort until I get back. Yeah, I mean, like every year it's like a 2-month road trip to end the season for me. Once it starts to get really, really cold and there's a whole ton of snow up there, I just hit the road and wander.
That's awesome. My problem is, like, this is when our trips start to end. We kind of start our fall with long road trips, and this is usually when we get back and have to edit all the videos and prairie sportsman stuff and do all that. But I don't know. We might have to.
Dude, Arizona's a really good one. Arizona and Nevada are both really good. Arizona, their season's open down there until the end of January as well. You can jump shoot ducks. You can buy over-the-counter coos deer archery tags. You can chase quail in the canyons. Whatever you want to do down there, there's a ton of stuff to do.
All right. Well, more trips are getting added to the calendar, I guess. All right, Tyler. Where can people find you online, social media, and all that good stuff?
I'm on Instagram is my main thing that I use the most, I guess, and it's just Western Wingshooter. We also have a Prairie Tales podcast Instagram page as well. I do some stuff on Facebook, but not much. And then I have a YouTube channel that's still under the old name. That's still under the Birds, Booze, and Buds podcast. That's just GoPro videos.
All right, very cool. Tyler Webster, appreciate the time. Good luck on the rest of your trip, and thanks for being on the show.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. It was fun.
All right, Joe Henry with a Lake of the Woods Fishing Report is coming up in just a second, but this segment is brought to you by Invergrove Toyota. They have dealer discounts and customer cash deals on new 24 and 25 Tundras in stock at Invergrove Toyota in Invergrove Heights, 494 and Robert Street. We also have a deal for you as well, too. Go to invergrovetoyota.com/FHF and get additional savings on a new Toyota at Invergrove Toyota.
Lake of the Woods, the walleye capital of the world, is calling out to you. From the northwest angle to the South Shore and Rainy River, this is the Midwest's #1 ice fishing destination. Walleyes, sauger, perch, northern pike, and eelpout. The fishing on Lake of the Woods is like a world of its own. Experience the most amazing fishing through one of the many full-service resorts featuring heated fish houses, ice transportation, meal plans, and sleeper fish house options. For more information, go to lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
All right, this is Sporting Journal Radio. I'm Brett Amundsen. Thank you for tuning in on the network by demand or watching this on YouTube or Spotify along with Dan Amundsen. And Joe Henry is going to join us now from Lake of the Woods Tourism from Lake of the Woods, ladies and gentlemen. Joe, what's happening?
Hey, man. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm sitting right now and people are starting to come in. There's some people at the bar and people are starting to come in for dinner and stuff. But I'm at Borderview Lodge tonight. We got all of our resorts are humming up here right now. And I happen to be at Borderview Lodge, but out fishing today, if you can believe it, on Lake of the Woods in a fish house. And I'll tell you what, didn't disappoint. It was a good day of fishing.
Yeah, fish were biting?
They were biting, yeah. I shot I'll tell you what I was doing. I shot a TV show with John Thielen of a TV show called Destination Fish. And, we just did the traditional resort thing, early ice. And, what the resorts do up here, you guys, is when they place their day houses this time of year, they want to ensure safety. So what they do is they bring you out in their light ice rigs. And normally that would be one of those light Jeeps like a Suzuki Samurai or Geo Tracker. And then they pull what's called a people hauler trailer. It's kind of a enclosed trailer with a heater in it. Usually it's got 2 axles on it, so it supports the weight nicely and good suspension. And you put all your gear in there, you load in there, and they take you out and drop you at the door of your fish house. Fish house, the holes are drilled, it's banked up, the holes are cleaned out, of course. Everything's ready to fish. 70 degrees. The first thing you do when you go in there is you take your jacket off and you hang it up. I mean, it's really easy. They do the work so we can relax, and we were just kind of showing that story today. And then of course we went out to shoot a TV show. Part of it's fishing, right? So we went out and did the old 1-2 punch like you do on Lake of the Woods, where you got one jigging line and you got one dead stick. And on our jigging line, we were using a Lindy rattling flyer. I was using kind of a glow red with red on it, and tipped that with a minnow head. That worked well in the morning. And then my dead stick turned on, man. I was using what they call a tungsten toad. It's John's repped by Lindy, or he works with Lindy and stuff. So I just use some Lindy tackle today for the most part. But that tungsten toad was a cool little jig, and I used that on my dead stick. It was chartreuse in color, and I hooked my there it is. And I hooked my minnow, my fathead, behind the dorsal fin, and it kind of makes the way it sits on there, makes that minnow struggle a little bit because it's kind of off kilter, and I think that catches more fish. But the dead stick was hot. And then as the day went on, I wasn't catching as many fish jigging with that Lindy rattling flyer. They were going to my dead stick more. So I put on a Rip and Wrap by Rapala. I put on a gold color, I think a number 4, if I'm not mistaken, and 4 or 5, and was ripping that. And actually got some fish to go on that too. So we had a good day. We caught a limit of fish of walleyes and saugers, which of course on Lake of the Woods, it's a combined limit of 6 fish of walleyes and saugers. Up to 4 of the 6 can be walleyes. So we caught a limit of fish. The guides, when you're done fishing at the end of the day, you load up into that people hauler trailer. They bring you in and they say, "Yeah, you guys go ahead and go to the bar or your cabin, wherever you want to go, and we'll clean fish for you. Do you want to eat them tonight at the resort, or do you want to have us package them so you can bring them home?" I mean, it's so nice, and it's just so enjoyable, so relaxing. It's a full service experience up at Lake of the Woods is what it is.
Sure. Those Geo trackers or Chevy trackers, I would love to see a report if we could to see what they sell for you, because they don't make them anymore, if I remember correctly. I would like to see what used ones sell for, say, in Virginia versus what they sell in northern Minnesota, because those things are worth their weight in gold up at Lake of the Woods. You see them more on, up at Lake of the Woods or on tracks or something when you're up in northern Minnesota, and they're glorified side by sides. Really, they're pretty sweet rigs, and this time of year they're perfect. And getting out there, Joe, when you're look at that, Dan is on it.
Dan's on it.
$6,000, 48. So, okay, these are all Minnesota.
These are Minnesota. So let's we can change your location here. Yeah. Pick a city.
Raleigh, North Carolina.
How do you spell that?
That's Ontario. That's Ontario. That's on Iowa.
Leigh, Bemidji State.
That's a big word for me.
All right, try. There you go.
I got it.
West Virginia. Perfect.
Mountain Mama.
Yeah, look at the difference in the prices there.
Is there one?
Oh, there's a $6,000 one, but still, yeah, generally, there's some.
That thing's kind of decked out.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Definitely a little bit cheaper.
There's an Oldsmobile.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you're missing out on.
They're more expensive than a 2012 Dodge Durango.
They're specialized. I mean, they're pretty sweet.
No comment. I will say that the guides tell me they're bulletproof.
Yeah.
It's hard to break them.
I mean, they are perfect for Lake of the Woods, especially this time of year. Joe, it sounds like, really in a lot of places in Minnesota, it's been a pretty good year for building ice.
Yeah, it has. I think it has been. And, you always got to be careful. But, overall, it's been a great start. Heck yeah.
Compared to last year,
we had sure. We've had cold temperatures. We haven't had, the snow yet. And it's been good. But I always say, when you go in Lake of the Woods, people say, what's the depth of the ice? You can't make a general statement because it can vary from ice road to ice road as you go along the shoreline. I will tell you, things are coming along very nicely. We have some sleeper fish houses out on the ice already. The snowmobile trail was groomed and staked today from Wheeler's Point, which is in the south end of Lake of the Woods, the mouth of the Rainy River, all the way up to the northwest angle. So that's open now. If people want to go snowmobiling, if they want to pull their collapsible fish houses up to go fishing, or if they just want to cruise up on a snowmobile to the northwest angle and stay up there and go ice fishing out of there in the the permanent or the day houses, I should say. They're all options. I mean, it's game on, and it's not even Christmas yet. So we're really fortunate to have the start we've had.
Hey, that snowmobile trail, that's you have to be on a tracked vehicle basically to be on that, right?
No, actually, you need to be on a vehicle with skis. So if you have a tracked vehicle on that snowmobile, that's illegal because it doesn't have skis like the definition of a snowmobile. Now you can use a bombardier, but a bombardier has tracks and they have skis in the front, so it's like a glorified snowmobile. So if you got to have skis in order to be on that. That's a state grant and aid trail, and there's certain regulations for being on a groomed state grant and aid snowmobile trail. And one of them is it's got to be a vehicle with skis.
There's a lot of trails up at the Angle, but there's also a lot of snowmobile trails around Badette or the South Shore down there. How are those trails looking right now, Joe?
They're starting to look very, very good. When we had that wind last week, I saw the Drifters Snowmobile Club down here in the south end of Lake of the Woods, out of Badette and such. They were doing a lot of work where they were clearing some of the branches and things. They also like it when snowmobiles get out this early part of the year because it packs that trail and allows it to freeze better. So things are going to come along very, very nicely. In addition, we're supposed to be getting some additional snow this week here before the weekend. So that's only going to add to the snowmobiling up here in the North Country. I will say too, Brett, if people snowmobile, I mean, you don't think the Lake of the Woods is snowmobiling, you really think of it as ice fishing. But the beauty of our snowmobile trails, one of the things I remember when you and I and Jamie Dittman were snowmobiling, he made the comment, because he's used to snowmobiling in a busier area of Minnesota, but he said, holy man, there's no traffic up here. You got the trails to yourself. Plus, you got the nightlife of the bars and restaurants and resorts. If you want to break up your snowmobile trip with ice fishing, we have an extended season because we're so far north that, it's really, there are some advantages for the right group to go snowmobiling up here.
Oh, yeah. We made a stop at the Igloo Bar, I believe, last time we were up there on the snowmobiles.
That's like illegal. I think that's one of the rules of that snowmobile trail. Like, you have to be on skis and you have to go to the Igloo Bar.
Exactly.
What happens at the Igloo stays at the Igloo. Remember, boys?
That's right. All right, Joe. Well, I mean, obviously, we want to recommend people go through guides and the services that are out there, the full services guides. Obviously, there are some people that go up there and do it themselves. What are you saying to those people that want to do it themselves up there right now?
Oh, just 100%. You're more than welcome. We cater to that, in many cases. The kicker is just make sure you're safe. So make sure that whichever ice road you go out of, make sure that you're communicating or at least seeing the messages, the up-to-date messages of okay, where can you go? How far out is there trail marked? What are the weight restrictions? For most trails right now, it's up to a side-by-side. But pretty soon they're going to allow pulling out wheelhouses. Pretty soon they're going to allow SUVs. I mean, you just got to watch it. Every ice road's different. Just follow the rules and you'll be fine. Don't go motoring off on your own. That's when people get in trouble. I mean, even like going over 4 Mile Bay or Zipple Bay or something, there's springs, there's current. There's a lot of things that get you in trouble.
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing with, especially earlier in the year, I just, I'm still pheasant hunting. So I like it when it's safe enough to drive my truck out on personally, and I don't need to go venturing out, in the winter.
Missing out on good fishing though.
Yeah, I know, but you know what? Generally, where I'm at, we're usually in a place where we can catch some fish too. Especially up at Lake of the Woods, it's nice just to jump in, and go out to one of the houses that's put out there by the guide service. They're out there every day. They know what's going on. And
by the way, I was talking to our buddy over at Royal Dutchman, and I tell you, they're getting sturgeon this year through the ice. Holy man.
Oh, yeah, which, Joe, we should talk, because I know we're working on planning some filming dates up there at Lake of the Woods. We might want to talk about some ice fishing for sturgeon while we're up there, too. And I didn't even, Dan, I forgot to bring it up, but when we had Carl on earlier, I felt left out by not having there was like two mustaches on the show at one time.
That's cool, isn't it?
We almost broke the internet, I think.
Well, yeah. So just imagine now, picture when the Royal Dutchman and I are catching sturgeon together.
All right.
Well, and I would say this too. Sporting Journal Radio, I'm wondering if realistically they should be paying for chiropractor appointments. That mustache is getting so bushy and heavy that's got to be straining your neck.
You don't even know.
I think that Fish Hunt Forever and Sporting Journal Radio should be paying for chiropractor.
Well, and it's not even for me. It's for all the people that watch the show just at a glance and their heads snap around like, what did I just see there?
Whiplash.
They throw their neck out.
Well, a lot of people are going to get whiplash. We better watch how you get some insurance for that or something.
Yeah, we're going to get sued.
All right, Joe, we got to go. Merry Christmas. And if people want to plan a trip to Lake of the Woods, what should they do?
Merry Christmas to you and to everybody, all the listeners. And if you want to come up to Lake of the Woods, great time to come up fishing. Fishing's been excellent. Everybody's catching fish. You know what? Check out our website. It's lakeofthewoodsmn.com.
Sporting Journal Radio is a division of Macaba LLC. If you've got a question, comment, or story idea for us, send us an email. Go to sportingjournalradio.com. While you're there, you can learn how to advertise on the show and visit our store for hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. Go to sportingjournalradio.com.